All right. Well, it's 10:30. That means it's time to get started. And I am so excited to welcome you all today to the beginning sessions of the 2022 Teaching and Learning Conference. My name is Teresa Keurig, and I am the AVP for Faculty Affairs at UAGC. And I'll be the host of today's session, Creating Compassionate Classroom Communities Through Reflection. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared later with TLC-related materials. Your microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we do encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat and engage with each other there. Also note that we've enabled live transcription. If you'd like to use it, click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Karen Gonzalez-Rice and Catherine Myers. Karen is an associate professor of art history and a faculty fellow at the Center for Teaching and Learning at Connecticut College. As a co-active coach, she works with academics who love their work but are overwhelmed and feel pulled in all directions. She helps faculty craving more focus and more rest to reconnect with what matters. Catherine Myers has served at UAGC for nearly 15 years in various roles related to faculty and staff support and development. Catherine also is a co-active coach, teacher, and a mom on a quest to leverage her personal values of harmony, compassion, and meaningful work to create spaces where her colleagues feel supported, heard, and valued so that they can achieve clarity on their personal values and directions. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Karen and Catherine.
Well, Teresa, thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. Thank you all for being here today. Karen and I are really excited to dive into this idea of how we can create these compassionate communities through the lens of reflection. So today you can expect to participate in an interactive experience. We invite you to share in the chat, unmute yourself, and we'll also be having a breakout session later today. Another thing that we'd like to extend to you is the opportunity to take notes. I'm a huge note taker. I have my notebook right here next to me. So if you want to take some notes in a notebook or on your computer, just a way for you to jot down anything that can come up during this time together. Now, part of that interactivity as well is observing Karen and I as facilitators, experimenting with these pedagogies based on compassion, involving the whole person, giving you, the participant, the flexibility to explore, inviting you to share as much or as little, decentralizing our own authority on this topic, and being transparent with you about what we are doing and why we are doing it and more. And so before we dig in to the meat here, we also acknowledge that we come from varied experiences and ways of thinking. So we also may have different ideas on what it means to show compassion. So I'd like to invite you in the chat, please share what comes to mind when you hear the word compassion. Perhaps it's another word, a phrase, a color, an image, or a feeling. What shows up when you hear compassion and showing compassion? So I see understanding, patience, sometimes for me, I think, pausing to think for sure. That was, well, you can have a freebie. 3 words there, Teresa. Ooh, walking a mile in someone else's shoes. Does anyone have like a word or a color? Like for whatever reason, for me, when I thought of this compassion, like a light pink, or vice versa, as my daughter says, warm purple. I'm not entirely sure what warm purple is, but that just kind of came up. Light blue, understanding individual situations, just straight purple for some. Okay, so the reason why we want you to do this, we want you to hold on to what you shared here, to what came up. And we'd like to invite you to take 2 to 3 minutes to reflect. Now you can turn off your camera for this part if you would like, but we want you to think back to a time when you have been on the receiving end of compassion. When you've experienced compassion, we're not going to ask you to share detailed answers to these questions. These are just more for you. So when you think about this time where you received compassion, how did any of those words or feelings show up in that experience for you? Were you offered this compassion freely, or was it something that you had to seek out? What did this moment make possible for you? How did this experience of compassion shape you? So let's just take a quick minute or two to bring yourself back to that moment. And maybe that moment was 20 minutes ago, 4 years ago. Maybe you have multiple moments. So we hope that you all have just something, even a fleeting image in your mind or a feeling within your body of that experience. And we're curious to hear what you discovered about being on the receiving end of compassion. So feel free to type in the chat. What did that give you? Valued. You felt valued. Held. Maybe feeling that you didn't deserve it, but it was meaningful. Seen and heard. You felt that you could overcome your challenges with the care of someone. What a beautiful thing to really remember and feel what it was like to receive compassion. And so why are we asking you to do this? Why are we asking you to remember these times and to name or choose colors on these times that you've experienced compassion?
So we're going to bring this experience. And I just want to note too that it seemed like for some of you all, it was sort of easy. Maybe you came up with a moment of compassion right away. And that it's also completely welcome if it was hard to think of a moment of compassion, or if it was hard to pick just one. Did anyone have that experience where it was challenging? We only gave you 2 minutes, I know, so it's hard to maybe fit into that time.
Yes, usually reflection is a little bit longer than 2 minutes. So we thank you for going along with that.
Hard to put it into one word. Yeah. I think there can be often like a whole range of embodied emotions and experiences that we feel with that moment of compassion. That's all welcome here, whether it was easy to bring to mind or not, or if you're struggling to put it into words, that's all welcome here. So what we want to do next is to really build on this experience of this sort of personal experience of compassion and kind of bring it into a small group discussion about compassion in the classroom. So, what does it look like? What is that like in the classroom? So we're going to give you a chance to be in community with each other in breakout groups. And I'm going to share my screen here so you can see the questions you all will be talking about. So what are some ways that you notice compassion in your classroom, or ways that you are not yet noticing compassion in your classroom? What about your experience of compassion that you just sort of have in mind is present or not in your classroom. What is that like? What does it feel like? If we had like a spy cam, what would we see? Are there things that we would see that take place in the classroom that we'd be able to identify as compassion, or is it more in the mind or in the body? And then what's important about compassion in the classroom? So these are the kind of questions that we'd like for you all to take about 6 minutes to explore. I am going to copy the questions into the chat so you all can access those during your conversations. So Sally, if you are all set, I think we can go ahead and, looks like the breakout rooms are open. So go ahead and we'll call you back in about 5 or 6 minutes.
You should have been invited to enter breakout room if you would like to accept that invitation.
Yes, you should see a little pop-up window asking you to join. If you missed that, I think we can reissue it to you. Just feel free to unmute and let us know.
And also, we just want to make sure you all know this is very low stakes kind of exercise. We have no expectations for what is going to come out of these groups. So I know it can be a little strange sometimes to go into a breakout room with people you don't know, but we hope you'll try it out.
I'm going to hop over to a breakout room that only has one person in it. So I'll come back.
Thank you, Teresa.
Move Allison to room 5.
I might have beat you to it, Sally. Sorry.
Oh, no. You're fine. I don't see anybody else. If there's anybody who's not in a room that would like to be assigned to a different room, speak up and be happy to do that if you showed up in a room and there was nobody else there. Maybe some folks just want to marinate.
It's my favorite word, Sally.
I know. You marinate and I percolate.
And that is absolutely welcome here.
Absolutely. And it's still, I just realized, the three of us, we're on the East Coast right now. So it's, 1:45 for us, whereas for any West Coast participants, it's still a little early.
Hey, the folks in my breakout room cannot unmute themselves. And I just saw, I
I
just
just
unchecked that button. I'm gonna go back and see if it worked.
Okay.
Here we go.
All time for experimentation.
I think we have just another minute or so, right, Catherine?
I think we said, 46 or 47.
Yeah. I'll just send a 1 more minute note. And then go ahead and close there.
Yeah, if they, I feel badly, I'd never heard of phenomenon before.
Learn something, it happens, right?
As
Technology.
Mr. McFeely used to say, you learn something old every day.
Oh,
That's what he used to say.
I just always remember him saying speedy delivery. Absolutely.
Here we go. Welcome back. It's always nice to see people's faces and smiling, usually coming back from breakout rooms. Wonderful. So now that we're all back, what did you all notice about how compassion is showing up in your classrooms? Whether you had a small group discussion or you're just thinking on your own, your comments are welcome. Feel free to unmute yourself in chat or add to the chat in writing, whichever feels comfortable for you.
Something that came up in our conversation that I think was kind of a theme, which is kind of funny because you talked about compassion and showing up. It's like literally showing up, being there. Like you first have to be present in some way. And I think in an asynchronous situation that can be challenging. But I think the first step to having compassion is literally just being present in some way, in some moment in someone's life. So I think that is it might seem obvious, like an obvious point, but it's a very important point to even begin to have compassion present.
I love that. What a beautiful observation that simply being present is such an important, crucial aspect of compassion.
There's no bells or whistles needed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Sally's point, we don't always have to have brilliant words, but just being there. And I think that distinction between being and doing,
Yes.
there's a lot of things we can do that are compassionate, and there's also ways of being present. For example, involved in compassion. What else? What else are you all noticing? Teresa.
Teresa, setting aside your own ego or intentions or perceptions. I mean, how often do we make, just in our own lives, make assumptions? And I think what was key, what you said there, Teresa, too, is setting aside, or in essence, pausing even to take it all in.
Catherine, I'm thinking of how you talk with our team a lot about our personal saboteurs.
Yes, absolutely. Kim, remembering there's a human on the other side of that assignment too. And that's, we'll show you, we'll pull back our slide again in a minute, like this whole person, this way of showing compassion to like the whole person, not just them taking an assignment. They're human and dealing with their own things, whether or not they choose to share with us.
I'm really noticing how many of these are really about like a tiny shift, really just an observation or a mindset shift, or, even just noticing like, wow, I'm showing up. I am present today in my classroom as a compassionate action.
I think it can be easy, right, to assume that we have to have these big, swooping gestures. And for us at our institution, with what we're working on with culture of care, and we talk about flexibility. And sometimes it's like, well, then everyone gets extensions on assignments and everyone can do that. But it doesn't have to be so large. Those small moments are really impactful.
This actually makes me remember what I was thinking about when we were thinking about our personal experiences of compassion. And what I thought of is how my husband makes me tea every morning. Every morning, without fail, there is a hot cup of tea waiting for me next to the stove, and it's such a simple thing, right? But it's almost like thinking about a compassion. That's what came up for me. I have not thought about it before like that, but that sort of simple, reliable presence. And so I think that, one of the things that Catherine and I wanted to emphasize is that there's so many different ways of showing compassion. There's, of course, no one right way. Compassionate action, compassionate being are varied and personal, collective and individual. So we wanted to be maybe a little bit we wanted to suggest some resources. Let's see here. Let me share my screen with some resources that we wanted you all to think about. So first of all, we're going to kind of return to this slide of this sort of set of, you might call them values or kind of ways of thinking about the world. And, we thought that these are really useful starting points for generating ideas about compassionate action and compassionate being in the classroom. So we have more specific resources for you all to explore. We did put on Whova a list of kind of more of a big, a specific list of books and articles. But these are some of the authors that have informed us as we're thinking about compassion in the classroom. And we thought that these might spark your imagination as well in thinking about how to connect that sort of personal feeling of compassion with your students.
And then, so just to kind of wrap up, of compassion equals action. Compassion is action. Susan David, who is a psychologist, speaker, author, she wrote the book Emotional Agility, and she had said this about compassion. Compassion is a willingness to be in a space of action with someone when they need extra support and flexibility. And so right now we want to focus on this space of action. And that was part of what Karen and I wanted to offer today, as this is a space of action, even taking some time to think about how is showing up in your classroom. That is an action. And so we want to, again, just help you get into this mindset of compassion is action. What's most important, regardless of how it shows up in your classroom, is that we do act. And so we would like to, in addition to those resources that we shared, just kind of want to leave you with a takeaway today, and we do have a few minutes. What is one way you can take compassionate action into your classroom this week? And you don't have to have an answer right now. During the breakout rooms, we were talking, I'm a marinator. Sally knows I'm a marinator. You may need some time to think on this. So we do have this listed in Whova for you, along with the resources. We've posed some questions, and we would love if over the next several days for you to get in there and interact with one another and share ideas. Invite other friends. I believe it's open not just to the people who attended this session. I believe those questions will be available to the whole of the conference. So, invite your friends to come play and talk about compassion.
We have one more thing that we want to ask you all to reflect on. And that is, what are some ways that we practiced a kind of compassionate action here in this workshop? So we're totally willing for you to not just, not just with the accolades, but like maybe ways that we could have been more compassionate to you or with you. But we're really trying to encourage you to think critically about our presentation and our time with you today. And are there ways that we presented ourselves, or that we asked questions, or the ways that we were in this time together that built on some of those principles that we talked about. So yeah, we're curious to see if you did experience compassionate action from us today. So that is posted in Whova, and feel free to explore that. We have a couple more minutes. Would anyone like to? Oh, good. Someone, Debbie's saying good compassion in problem solving in the break room. What a lovely observation that participating in problem solving is a compassionate act. Yeah. So in our last 2 minutes, would anybody like to maybe share the one thing you might do this week or next week in your classroom? One compassionate action, or perhaps you have questions for us. Feel free to unmute or post them in the chat.
Karen and I, as Teresa shared in introductions, we are coactive coaches. That's where we actually met over a year and a half ago through our coach training. And so we, in environments that we create, we want to ensure that there's this open space for you to be whomever you are as you show up. However, come as you are. No shirt, no shoes, no service. It doesn't matter. If you don't have a shirt on, though, just keep your camera off. But and we hope that this is something that you could take away with your students as well, inviting them to come as they are to your class, meeting them where they are. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, kind of adding a video welcome with the message of encouragement. Yeah. So great. Yeah.
Well, please, as we had said, use Whova. This is a new thing for Karen and I to engage in that manner, but we look forward to continuing this conversation, and we're open to speaking more about compassion in the classroom or anything else that may come up.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here at our, maybe a little bit kooky session, but we are delighted that you joined us. So we wish you the best for the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Catherine and Karen, so much. And I think when the universe decided to make me a tech host here, it was like, yes, because Catherine, this is my kind of stuff. So thank you both so much. And thank you to those who chose to come to this session today and participate. Want to encourage everybody to attend tomorrow's, I have to read or I won't be, tomorrow's keynote with Dr. Adriana Kazar from the University of Southern Cal. It just said USC, but where I live right now, that's South Carolina. But so University of Southern Cal, director of the Center for Higher Education. And that's tomorrow at 9 Pacific. And you all will also receive an email with an evaluation. Please feel free to fill that out. That's always very helpful to the speaker as well as those planning. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and rest of your TLC. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And I'll stay in here for a while. Patch can tell my winding up my puppy can tell the winding up a meeting voice. It just came over.
Thank you so much, Sally.
Oh, Karen, it was wonderful. And just real quickly, I didn't realize where you work. My mother graduated from Connecticut College for Women in 1946.
Wow, I love it.
Yes, way back in the day.
That's fabulous.
She dated a lot of coasties.
I believe it. Yeah, in those days, the only social life in town. Bye, Sally. Thank you.
Bye, guys. I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting now if there aren't any other questions or comments.